Okay, very good. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. I would like to call to order the November 15th, 2017 regular City Council meeting. It is 7:01 p.m. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda this evening is the consent calendar. Is there any questions before a motion on that this evening?
Question? I was just wondering, I was here on Saturday and I saw the tow truck come in and loaded up with a patrol car. Did we have a problem? Do we have enough patrol cars?
Not that I'm aware of. I did not hear, so
Okay.
great question. Must not have been anything significant.
Second question, are we deleting item F1 from the schedule tonight?
F1?
F1?
No, we will just touch on that when we get to it. Okay. Is there a motion on the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second?
A second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. I would like to just make note on the records that Councilman Ryan is not here with us this evening. He has had something going, so we have 3 councilmen and the mayor. Item C, open forum. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to something that is not on the agenda this evening? We will make time for comments on each individual item. Anyone? Okay. Hearing none, seeing none, we will move on. Thank you. Reports. City Administrator. Jenny?
Thank you. The first item I have tonight is to approve the 2018-2020 Teamsters employment contract. Just wanted to note that the discussions and conversations with the union went very well. Great conversation, and I think both parties are pleased with the result.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve the agreement between the City of Nisswa and the Teamsters General Local Union number 346, dated from January 1st, 2018 through January 31st, 2020, as presented.
Second.
Is that the right union number? I have 342.
I think it's 346 on the.
Yeah.
It says it on
I'll
here.
make sure it's right
Okay.
for
Right
the
off of
minutes.
here.
Very good. Okay. Any discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Great. The second item that I have for you tonight is a resolution certifying unpaid sewer charges. This is typical practice every November that outstanding sewer charges for the year will be certified to the county for inclusion on the next year's property taxes. A letter did go out to everyone notifying them of this on October 3rd. So they've had some time and will still have time through the end of the week to make a payment.
Okay.
Question, what is the drop dead date that you have to certify to the county? December something?
I believe November 30th.
November 30th. So anything we pass tonight, if somebody comes in the door and pays before you certify, it's still good?
Yes. Yes.
I'd move the resolution certifying the unpaid sewer charges as presented by staff.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Johnson. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item I have tonight is information received from NJPA, the National Joint Powers Alliance, regarding their Board of Directors election nomination. If there are any council members who are interested in being nominated or passing their name forward to be considered for this position, I'm happy to pass that along if the council, there's consensus from the council that that would be appropriate. I'm happy to answer questions.
I see you have applications in our packet for us, so thank you.
Yes.
Any questions for Jenny? Okay, we'll move on to item D.
Okay. And this is just informational. I received information from the League of Minnesota Cities regarding training opportunities for elected officials. And so this newly elected official training will happen next January. It's a 2-day training. I've heard wonderful things about it and wanted to make sure that you were aware of it if you don't get emails from the League, and wanted to just ensure that the council knew that there were resources out there that you could certainly utilize if you had interest. You can, I'm happy to answer questions, or if you want to talk with me at another time, that's fine too. I believe there is some money budgeted for council training. So.
Jenny, real quick, did I read somewhere from you that there was training for, this is for newly elected, was there other training for,
Well, as far as there is also training for more experienced officials, yes. So if you've been a city council member.
There wasn't that one.
There is, yes. Yep. There weren't details for that yet, but.
Get with you later on that.
Yep, okay. So that is just informational. And just a couple of general updates. I just wanted to highlight that our comprehensive plan is in its final draft form. It is on the city website, and there will be a couple of press releases over the next couple of weeks in the Echo, reminding residents and community members that they are welcome to provide their comments and feedback, present it to the Planning Commission in December. We'll have a public hearing on the comp plan, and then also the City Council will see the comp plan at the December meeting. The county will also be submitting questions or comments about the comp plan as well, so I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that the information was on our website, and they can certainly reach out if they have questions or want to provide feedback on that. Also, just a couple quick updates. Our parks programming for the winter is on our websites, and there's some fun programs that Matthew has put together over the next few months through February, I believe. Spirits of Nisswa is having an event, I think, in conjunction with Schaefer's on December 7th. Taste of Spirits Holiday Cheer, and there's going to be samples and prizes and some fun things, so that will be a fun evening for everyone. And then Pickle and Spirits are both working together to raise funds for the soup kitchen, and they have a vendor who has agreed to match funds that they have raised. So I think if you are at either of those businesses and want to make a contribution to the soup kitchen, there will be some matching funds there as well. So just want to let everybody know that they're working to help the soup kitchen out this time of year is important. So wanted to make sure everyone knew that. And that's the end of my report, unless you have questions for me.
Appears we have none. Thank you, Jenny.
Great. You're welcome.
City Attorney report. Mr. Pearson.
Mayor and council, at the last meeting, there was a discussion about the sign for the Spirits Liquor Store, and we followed that conversation with that I should draft a proposed easement agreement, and I didn't do that between the last meeting and now, but I failed to put the draft into the packet in time for Jenny to include it. So know that will be in front of you at the next meeting, and I think we're still kind of okay timing-wise as far as that sign.
Yeah, we're still in the middle of the process. So,
yeah, I'm sorry about that. I completely just forgot to put it into the packet. I'll have it ready for you next time. I don't have anything else in my report unless you have questions.
I guess I do maybe have one question. If you have that done, Tom, maybe get that up to Jenny or something, and we can preview it before the next meeting. That would be appreciated.
I'll get it to her before the end of the week.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Mark Allen, City Engineer,
No, I have no specific items at this time. We'll talk about later under new business.
Okay, thank you. New business. Item number 1, recommendation from Parks and Rec Commission regarding acceptance of bid for Nisswa Lake Park development. We need a council action on that.
Just a question. It doesn't indicate on here if there was more than one bid. Was there more than one?
Great question. Yes, there were 2 bids received.
There were 2.
2.
I'm not going to ask you how much the other one was for. Obviously, this is the lowest one.
It was
more.
It was
It was more.
higher, much higher.
Considerably more.
Yeah. Yes, I said, obviously, this is the lowest one.
And he's local too, so it's a win-win.
One question that I have regarding this is I noticed in the way looks like the payment is laid out that we're not using all of the funds that were donated. Do we have an explanation for that?
Yes, I'm going to invite Matthew up, just because I know he can speak a little bit more to that.
Don, we sent out 6 bid requests to 6 different organizations, and 2 gave us bids back. So, the question again, I'm sorry.
Question is, I saw the report about
Yes, okay. So
and
the $7,000 that's set aside from the original donors, $35,000. 28 is for the trail development. 7 is set aside for infrastructure items like picnic tables, benches, signage, barbecue pits, garbage cans, things like that. So we'll have a fully functional park system, and that's per the donor's request.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Matthew while he's up here? Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
I'd move the acceptance of the bid for the Nisswa Lake Park Development Project as presented by staff.
I'll second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2, recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the Gardens Cottages final plat approval for ETOC, Inc. And we have that information in our packet. This is an action item. Good evening, Mark. I will, is there some things that you would like to specifically say, or are you looking to see if there's questions from?
I have a letter, just a note here about the tree plan. It was requested that we submit in writing a tree plan. It states that we'll be putting in 25, 12, 16-foot trees. Applications to be approved by the Planning Commission, or the Planning and Zoning Administrator at such times when the roads, there's little tweaks in the roads that need to happen, which always happen. And so we'll have them approve that. Also, we put in here that each of the blocks, as they submit their landscape plan, along with the building permit, that we require to put at least 2 of the same size trees in there. So this puts about 60 trees. So 60 trees. There aren't a huge number of trees that are going to be taken down in the significant trees out in the actual plat itself. But there was a request for bringing writing what it is that we wanted to do, or that we were planning to do. So I did send that to Desmond, but also I had a little problem with my email, so I brought copies to submit to the record.
Okay.
The second thing is, on this is, the final Mylars are being burned, so to speak. They do reflect, and they will reflect for the mayor's signature. There was 2 lots that were a little bit too close to the sidelines. When we came in with this plat, we said there was no variances required. So those 2 lots on the final plan have been moved well within the boundaries, so there are no variances that are required for this plat. And finally, as is the way we've done the way for these larger, 25-unit plat or 21-unit plats, and the larger plats we've done in the past, we have always submitted after this meeting and hearing if there's any other conditions. we submit all the covenants, restrictions, and bylaws, all that documentation that goes with the plat to the city attorney for his review, because most of that is boilerplate. But on occasion, on these documents, we will include the requirement for the people to add those 2 trees to their sites, and then we won't be able to record these lots until such time that the mayor signs off on the actual plat and the city attorney signs off on all the documentation in terms of the covenants, restrictions, all that stuff. Most of that is boilerplate. It's very, very similar to everything we've always done in the past, but it's all legalese, and it's 40, 50 pages of it. And so that is the way that so this is, upon approval, the 2 things that need to happen is we need to sign off on the Mylars, and the city attorney needs to sign off on on all the documents that govern these associations. It's mostly association. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Council, questions?
P&Z went over it pretty thoroughly over the course of 3 meetings, so it's pretty good.
Okay, so you have no questions. Gary, any questions?
No questions.
Ross?
Oh, got them all answered.
Okay, very good.
I'll move that the city council takes the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the final plat of VTOC called the Garden Cottages, insert the legal at that point, subject to the findings of fact and the planning and zoning recommendations attached to.
I'll second.
Yeah, here a second by Crow Kramer. Discussion?
Mark, when will this start?
Right away.
In theory.
In a week to 10 days.
You'll start actually.
We'll start building dirt and so we'll be out by 10 days. But the sewer plan has to be signed off on by the public works. So there will be a sewer plan and an actual document that is signed off by public works before we start construction. And that is also inspected. The public works department has to do it. And we're paying for it. It's just an extension, a private extension of the public services.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck with the project. Item E3, recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission regarding traffic issues in the Grandview Lodge area. And we do have, it was something that came up at the Public Works meeting, and I had actually brought it up and just suggested that if the Planning and Zoning Commission felt that there may be a need, they felt the need that they would send a recommendation to the council. You know, I've lived in the neighborhood, you know, in the city my whole life, basically, with the exception of a handful of years. And I've seen the growth of Grandview, and I don't know that I have the numbers all correct, but probably somewhere 30 years ago-ish, there probably was 600 to 800 guests in the summer on a weekend day. And today that number is doubled. And so, and along with that, there's restaurants, there's bar, there's a beachfront that does see some public use. People going back and forth from the golf course, units on the other side of the County Road 77, and the streets going off of County Road 77 into the Grandview area, in the east and west Linden area. The city's not done anything to upgrade those streets at all. I think they're 20 feet wide, you know, very narrow. And it just, there's, you know, I've gotten many emails from residents on, especially West Linden, a couple from East Linden, but it's primarily West, and it's been an ongoing concern for a good number of years about this, about the traffic that the citizens see, and I'm thinking maybe that now is a time to put together a committee made up of a couple city council members, possibly Jenny, Public Works, Planning and Zoning, a couple, 3 residents maybe from that neighborhood and Grandview, and start a discussion about what might be traffic solutions to allow for freer movement of traffic and more safety in that area. That being said, I know Grandview has been working on, and I see it firsthand myself, rerouting a lot of traffic, big trucks, things like that, around their new service entrance that comes in off of County Road 77 down by MK Auto Body, and rerouting or encouraging, asking employees to use that route as well. But there's still been a huge increase in traffic in that whole neighborhood over the last several decades. And it seems like it may be time to start to take a look at that, so that maybe things take time, probably a couple, 3 years, 1 to 3 years, we might have a plan as to what to do. So that is the reason it's on the agenda tonight. It's a recommendation from Planning and Zoning. I'm fully behind that. So I'll open it up for discussion, questions.
One thing that was brought up, the county should really have been included in any committee that's set up because of the potential for interchange up there on 77.
Certainly that piece of it.
The county has to be involved because it's county money and you've got to go with the flow, I guess. But there's such a mix of public and private roads within the compound area that you need to look at both city-owned stuff that's owned by the lodge, and other stuff, and put it all together. Part of the reason it's coming from the Planning and Zoning Commission is you just approved the garden courts with putting more traffic on. There's a new spa and recreation area going in that's going to increase the traffic, and there's going to be a big motel, I call it hotel. That unit's going to have a lot of traffic. So that pushes this question to the fore. Let's get on top of it before we react. Let's be proactive rather than looking at it from behind. My only suggestion would be don't make the committee too big that it's unwieldy.
Sure. Thank you, Don. Ross? Gary?
I think it's a no-brainer. It needs to get looked at. It needs to be addressed, and I absolutely think,
Okay. Gary, any thoughts?
Nothing to add. I agree.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion, or would
Sure,
Doug make a
I'll
motion?
move that City Council takes the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding traffic issues in the Grandview Lodge area and task the mayor the task of setting up a committee made up of city employees, county highway employees, and representatives from the lodge, and 1 or 2 representatives of the people who live in the area. Report back to us in no more than 1 year's time.
I'll second that. Discussion?
if no one else, I mean, I would be interested in being on that committee, but if there's other people, that's fine too. Okay.
Is this open for?
If you have a comment or two, we could certainly do that.
Probably not during our discussion. discussion, though. We should probably vote, don't you think?
Probably should. I mean, technically, we probably should, yeah. So, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Tom?
Tom Farrell from West Linden. I've met some of you before. Just a question, because this whole traffic issue has been discussed. I've attended a number of the planning and zoning meetings. And where do we draw in the county into this? I mean, have there been discussions? Mark, I don't know if you've had a chance, or you folks have had a chance to talk to the county.
I do know that the county has been approached. My understanding is that the county is looking for some action and some input from the city to kind of get the ball rolling. The county, it might be, I'm not sure if it's safe to say this or not, but the county, I think, kind of desires to be asked by the city.
They want to follow.
Well, that could possibly be it. I'm not really sure. I do know Grandview has talked with the county, I think, on more than one occasion, and they're like, first of all, it's like, show us the need, show us that, that there's more expansion going on. Then we'd probably like to hear from the city and then start a discussion. So the county would most certainly be notified and be involved in
any kind of planning that goes on. Because I've got 77's gotten, in addition to what Grandview's currently proposing, there's been a steady creep. There's more traffic coming off the lower Lake Road, or lower Roy Lake Road. As that area's been built up. You might have 21 more units there at some point in time. That access road, we're going to have the temporary construction road. And it's not a real ideal spot, because, it's a windy road. They've got to, either they go, if you look at Lakeshore, what they've done, when you get to those high population areas with speed limits and whatnot. And I think enforcement, besides, that's probably the key. Signs are one thing, but a ticket gets somebody's attention. So somehow they've got to, they can't be 100 yards behind us. They got to get up to speed too. Because, on a traffic count, that would be their responsibility. Not that we shouldn't do traffic counts on the city roads.
And I think maybe you were at the planning and zoning meeting. There is looking to be a traffic study done.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, I think we maybe even talked about it, and it was like afterwards, and it was like, I'm not sure how you do a traffic count in the wintertime when the traffic's really low, unless the county has some way to calculate things. But
well, I think your city engineer said there are some
so
models, but
so we will be looking into that and inviting the county to be part of that. And I think what you brought up is a good point. There is more traffic. There's more construction going on Lower Roy Lake Road outside of what Grandview already has platted. Farther down the road, that area is changing, and I have no idea how up to speed the county is with those changes. So bringing them into the conversation, we can make them aware of some of these different things, and we might even bring up the bike trail with them, because that's something that's starting to happen.
Mark had mentioned that.
Yeah, I know there's another group that's going to be starting on working on the bike trail. So it'll be a great time to have a big conversation, a big picture conversation.
Get all the eggs in one basket.
There you go.
That was my concern, but I'd like to see some expedience. And I don't know that the county's.
Well, I think what we propose is the city council to send a letter to the county commissioners asking them to instruct the highway department to put this to give some attention to this. Because we've been there, we've talked about it, and they go, yeah, until they start putting it on that planning plan, I should say, or the planning, either way. So if, what I would ask is the city council to send a resolution to them saying, you know, call me to word that. Please move this up on there. We as a city see this as a need, as an area that needs attention, which would be infrastructure, highway departments give some attention, or however you want to phrase it. But until they get a little pressure from the county commissioners, you know, if there's going to be the right way. So.
And I think as a council, we're fairly familiar with, you know, it's probably kind of an annual visit from the county or a biannual, and they come in and, you know, they'll ask us questions about, you know, what do we see and do we want to make any changes, and we also generally hear, well, the county cut our road budget again for like the 8th straight year. So in some ways it's probably not overly surprising that they give a little lip service, because they probably don't, I'm not going to speak for them, but it sounds like their budget has been cut.
But you had mentioned the county's also passed a 0.5% sales tax now for roads.
Yeah.
Get on that bagwagon early.
There you go. There you go. So, anything else then, Tom?
No, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else quickly before we move on? Okay, hearing none. Do we, as a council, would we like to I don't know if we need to have the city attorney put together a resolution, or we ask Jenny to contact the county about getting together in discussions about the changes, or, you know, or updates, or discussion about traffic on County Road 77 in that area to kind of get the ball rolling.
Well, I think what usually it works the best is if you talk to the individual county commissioners.
Okay. Mr. Pearson, do you have any suggestion? Any others, or any other thought, or from your experiences?
Not really, Mayor. I mean, yes, you could adopt a resolution that you forward to the county board asking them to take action based on that resolution. I don't really have an opinion about politically what the right way to go about that is.
Okay.
The only problem I see in it is we're asking for a resolution on something we're not even sure what it entirely is yet.
The resolution would just be to engage with the county in discussions.
I guess discussions on what, though? I mean, I think we should have a little more of a plan. I mean, I think this needs to get done, and I also agree with Don. Isn't Paul Teedy kind of our commissioner?
Yes, he is. And
for our, I mean, that's how it works, is he's for our area. Maybe we should start with even him and just start.
I'm on a board with him, and we'll be meeting in 2 weeks, and I can talk to him at that time.
Yeah, I think, absolutely, I think that we should get a hold of him, but I wonder if we shouldn't have more of a plan, or at least a committee put together, and at least some things on the upfront, so that we have something that this is what we're doing, this is more than what we have tonight, I guess, would be my thought on it.
Well, let's leave it. Gary, do you have anything?
No,
Okay.
I agree with what Ross is saying.
So Don, would you like to have a discussion with Paul then, and then
In
report back to us?
In about 2 weeks, I'll have
Yeah.
that meeting with him, yeah.
And you can just,
Bend his arm a little bit.
there you go.
There you go.
Okay.
I would think if we'd get him to advocate for it too, that
It's his
No.
district, so.
yes, exactly.
Okay. E4, update on Edna Lake Road and options. Jen, do you want to?
Sure, I can give a little bit of an update. I know there's been some discussion about potential options. We haven't, as the city staff, gotten too far into details with MnDOT. I believe that they have offered to allow the city to make an improvement if we feel the need to, if the city would like to move in that direction. They have provided, I believe Tom Blummer received kind of the detail as far as their criteria and how the road came to be a little bit as far as what their steps are. Provided that, and I think Tom provided that to the council last week at the meeting. So I don't know at this time if they are engaging beyond that, as far as any changes that they would make. We'll have the upcoming landscaping discussion in the spring with them, but anything in the immediate future, I haven't heard. So I don't know if the council has anything further to add, but I think the council can have the opportunity now to make their comments or ask questions, and the staff is really open to direction or continuing to talk with MnDOT and see if there are other solutions that we haven't addressed yet for how we can help the situation.
Okay. And I do have a couple things to add. And I did have a conversation with Jody Martinson from MnDOT. She had called me this a few days ago or end of last week, somewhere in there. And she was just kind of following up. It was kind of a feel-good call to see if, how things were going, and, if we, and to say that she thought that that MnDOT would be open to giving a permit to the city to put a guardrail up at the city's expense, if we were so inclined. I brought up to her that wasn't our first and best idea, was to pay for it, and that we really kind of felt that that MnDOT should be responsible for that. There wasn't a big response there. It was, a little like, well, we'll have to check into it. I then brought up the possibility of MnDOT not putting up maybe some of the signage that they were going to put up, and then give those dollars to the city if we were going to end up paying for the guardrail. Jody informed me that different signs have come from different areas and different protocols, and some are absolutely mandated, some have some possibilities as to whether they have to go up or not. And then if there's some that wouldn't have to go up, then she'd have to talk with people and people's people probably to see if there could be some sort of a swap, so to speak. And that was kind of the crux of that conversation. It seems to me like we have, the city has a couple options, 3 options. One, obviously, the least probably favorable, and that's do nothing. But the 2 options would be the city say, we'll pay, let's get a permit from MnDOT. Let's get a guardrail put in, whether it's a 3-cable type or of the big metal, more solid type guardrail, and then the city pay for it, or we look to engage MnDOT and invite them, a couple of the representatives, to come here to City Hall and talk with us about it. And it seems to me, face-to-face discussions usually go farther with agencies than phone calls and emails. I remember a couple instances with the project as it transpired, and where MnDOT was like, no, we won't do that, and then in the end they ended up doing it. So it seems like there's a bit of an argument to be made that I have no idea what the total cost of that project was, but $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for a guardrail on a project that was basically their design just doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. Should be that big of a deal for them. So it may be worth engaging them and having the conversation anyway. That would likely slow the process down a lot. As I don't think, I'm around government a fair bit, and it doesn't move as fast as the market does. So it may take weeks or a few months before that would happen. So that's kind of what I know and have to share. Don?
I'll use my favorite phrase, we're kicking the can down the road again. We have a demonstrated problem with the curve. We've had one car go off and go down the embankment, and luckily there was no accident. But I think what we should do is notify the state that we're putting in the guardrails. If they want to pay for it, that's fine. If not, we're going to pay for it, put it in. And I'd rather spend $7,000 or $8,000 now proactively rather than have a car go over, flip around and everything, and somebody get killed, and the city gets sued later on for not doing something knowing that it was a problem area. So my suggestion is let's authorize Public Works to go ahead and put in a 3 cable barrier design. Cost is $5,000–6,000 according to this statement I have here. Let's just go ahead and do it, get it done. It's for the safety of the people. Who's going to pay for it after that? We can kick the can down the road on that issue and see if we can get the state to throw some money in the pot too. But let's get it done before somebody gets killed there. Let's not plan. Let's not delay for another meeting or 2 meetings down the road. By that time it's snowing and you got the problem, and let's fix it. That's be my suggestion.
Thank you. Gary?
I tend to agree with what you're saying, Don. I don't know if I guess I don't even know what's involved in installing a guardrail. I don't know if it's something that Tom can just do, or...
He knows.
It's basically drilling and putting material in the ground and strapping something to it.
Oh, okay.
But it's not something your city staff would do. You would hire a specialty contractor that follows the MnDOT standard place.
Yeah.
Because it is a safety ad.
Right.
So they're going to know the depths to install. So they would be driven poles, and it's manual labor stringing the cables.
Okay.
One of the items that would have to be decided is coming down the hill, when you put, any type of guardrail in, then are you going to have a safety device? If somebody goes off and hits it dead head, as you see, they crush and they do. So that adds a considerable cost about what Don was talking about. So, that would be a different recommendation you'd have to get from it. But again, it's not 371. You're not going off at 65, 75 miles an hour and crashing into this. So, that would have to be a recommendation that would come from the guardrail.
Okay. And are they designed so that the post part of it would, if somebody did hit, does that post part, is that almost sort of a breakaway, and then the cables are there to sort of stop or does it all depend on how fast they're going? And
well, the post bend, right? You don't want to stop the vehicle. Dissipate the energy, right? And then the cables are anchored at each end. So, right, you're trying to stretch, and you stretch it.
Mm-hmm.
So the rubber band, that mitigates the impact, so the passengers don't stop. They come in, and then they're, for lack of better words, bounce back onto the road by hitting the curb.
Yeah. So from a budget standpoint, this would just come out of Public Works budget, I guess.
Initially, but then you can talk with the state about payment. But that's
some sort
after
of
the
reimbursement. Yeah, I'd be all right with this.
Ross?
I can't argue. I think it's going to be more, and I talked to Tom, and it's probably going to be double what he initially thought. What he indicated to me,
Double $6,000.
like in that $11,000 range. Part, I think, is what, if I remember right, and if I have it right, is what Mark talked about is it's not the guardrail itself, it's the thing before the guardrail that hits the impact, that so you don't.
If the other option was chosen.
The other Yeah, so I mean, I'm just saying it's might not be as cheap as that. The other thing is that was kind of under the bid of the project, and this being, so I would absolutely say to move forward on it. It would be nice if we could do it under the state, at least get the state bids. I don't know if there's any difference with that or not. And then in the end, you know, at least have a little bit of a bargaining chip, because they have to sign the road over to, we have to take ownership of the road, and that could be something at that point that we can at least have some means to have a discussion there to get
Some
the money,
leverage.
we split it. Yeah, a little bit. I don't know how much leverage you get with the state, but.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I would say, I would like, you know, to get it done as soon as possible, to also, though, make sure we have proper engineering and that, you know, all of it's looked at. But, yeah, I mean, I would say that we need to move forward with it. I don't know how we set a dollar amount here tonight to keep it moving forward, though. You know, if we just say under 13, under 15 to give.
Well, the cost estimate that I have the last time for a 3-cable barrier was $5,100. You're saying it's double that
I'm just saying,
now?
I talked to Tom and just had a brief conversation with him on it, so I wouldn't, you know.
Well, double it to 10.
So that's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
Jenny, part of the work that was looked to get done between last week and now was to get some actual costs. Were we not able to get actual costs?
It was a challenge to really get to the specifics as far as what that might look like. Time of year, as soon as possible, will be a challenge as well, just because of being winter and things like that. You know, we will certainly, if that's the council's direction or directive, we'll work to figure, you know, which who we can use in the process we can go through. But I believe, Tom can correct me if I'm wrong, but the information that was provided was based on MnDOT crews already being in the area, and so you don't have that mobilization and some of those additional costs factored into that. So that's part of the reason it would be more expensive, and it probably would be in that 10 to 12 range. So depending on how comfortable the council is, we can go out and get bids and bring it back and really see where that actually lands.
I think we should move ahead quickly. How much is a human life worth if something goes wrong and we know that there's something that's not right there and we could correct it? Personally, I'd rather get it done within 30 days if we could do that instead of 2 or 3 months.
Sure.
I didn't even see it here, Tom, so if you want to come up and speak to the.
The numbers you have are from MnDOT. They are within the boundaries of the project. They're also summer numbers, seasonal. So I don't believe it's including engineering, so you need to probably add about 15% to whatever they have for the engineering. Probably as much as 25% for winter operation, and maybe up to another 25% for mobilization that would have been included in the original project. Now, that's not to say that maybe there isn't some wiggle room with MnDOT to get them to come back. I don't know that. Certainly the engineering didn't happen. They didn't plan for a guardrail of any type, so.
What contact were you able to have with MnDOT this week to do some investigating? And
well, I've been in contact with Tony Hughes and and also Jody Martinson that you've talked to. I've also talked to Jim Hallgren, and the document you have is from the 3 engineers at MnDOT in this office that deal with that. So
you talked with all 3 of them in the last week?
About in the last week and a half, yeah.
I mean, I'm even fine with going forward, starting to get information, get this going, and if we need to do a special meeting to get it done, we can do that.
I really think it's important that we get some costs and that I want to see it move forward, definitely. But I guess I was anticipating we would have some actual numbers today.
Well, a week's time's not very long to get.
And part of that too is if the council
And we
went a
didn't
completely
even get-
different direction.
We didn't even give direction
We
on it.
didn't
Yeah,
know,
absolutely
so.
not. So,
Yep,
I would-
we've been conversing a bit, but certainly want to make sure that we're moving forward in the right way.
Well,
So-
this, excuse me, Jenny, I'm sorry.
Nope.
This is just an estimate. You know, I mean, you have an estimate from MinDOT, is what you have. Without a bid, you don't have a real cost. So we'd have to actually figure out a project and get bids to get solid costs if that's what you desire.
And I thought that was
Perfect.
part of what we had requested at the meeting last week.
No,
I don't recall that.
I don't believe so.
Really? Okay.
Because we weren't even at this point in the meeting.
you know, we hadn't looked at other options for this either. You know, are there something other than a guardrail that would be desired here? I mean, it would seem you're pretty unanimous in wanting that now, but at that time, you know, the ideas are all over the
One of the things
place.
I asked about is doing a berm there or some sort of, kind of you said makes it steeper on your side. I mean, I would say that we either set an amount tonight that we think it's going to be so Tom can move forward, or he moves forward, he gets estimates, and we do a special meeting and get it done.
I think we get estimates,
Okay,
and we have a meeting.
sounds good.
You need a motion?
I don't know if we need a motion for
Tom's-
that or not. Tom,
Or
what do you
we're
think?
Tom's
gonna expend money?
I'll make a motion that we proceed forward with getting cost estimates to put guardrail in on Edna Lake Road,
3 cable style?
3 cable style. Well, have engineering and come to the best, cheapest option.
I'll second it.
Again, the motion sounds like we're kicking the can down the road. We're just getting a cost estimate. Come back, when, at the December meeting, and then we decide what we're going to do, and it's not done until January?
I would say we get a special meeting.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we get it done as soon as we possibly can, rather than waiting 30, 60 days down the road.
I amend my
I don't think
motion
anybody's
that,
talking that.
that we
No.
set up, once we get the information and get the engineering, because that's all going to have, once we get the information, that we set up a special meeting in a timely manner to get it posted and get it
Okay.
going.
Amend my second to include that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Roger?
Thank you.
Any clarifications or?
Roger Landers, Edna Lake Road. First of all, number one, thank you, council, for taking the initiative to make our roads safer, especially Don for initiating the motion and discussion. I think the rest of us on Edna Lake Road will really appreciate what you've done. That's number one. Number two is that whoever looks at that road, have them also take a look at the safety of, that steep slope residential private driveway that comes down and hits that. That's an absolute ridiculous slope that is going to have to be dealt with. So I don't know if the guardrail should come down to include that private driveway or not, but I'd like whoever's looking to also look at that private driveway. Does everybody know which one I'm talking about?
I think I know what driveway you're talking about, but I'm not quite sure what your concern
Well,
is.
it's a steep slope coming
we
down
talking
that private
So-
driveway to hit the service drive.
So you think that you're suggesting maybe there should be a guardrail across on the other side of the street so that if that resident comes down their driveway, they don't go over and into the ditch?
Correct. Right? Yeah. Correct. Yes.
Are you talking Groundholz's driveway?
No. That brand new one.
Oh, the
that's-
new one,
Yes.
that's, okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you, I'm with
Okay,
you.
everybody, okay, so just, I think that one, should be considered. So the other thing is, why haven't the remaining signs gone up on that road?
I have no
Like,
idea.
The speed limit signs.
I believe
are what
MinDOT's
there's-
taking care of it, they're on order.
Pardon?
I think they are being made, or they haven't been made yet, that's MinDOT's taking care of that.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you again for considering that and taking immediate action on it.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, anyone else? Moving on, old business, F1, discussion and vote on keeping or rescinding the city's current assessment policy. We're going to look to table that this evening. There's been, obviously the road assessment thing has been a hot ticket item for the last year and a half. And, there's a lot of different input from different thoughts of what the 429 process is and what it isn't and how to use it and what its intent is and so on. And after the last meeting, I was kind of thinking about it. I had a conversation with Tom Pearson, our city attorney. He brought up some different points about it, and the discussion of a workshop came up during that conversation, and we talked about how that workshop might take shape and who might be the person to head it up, and told Mr. Pearson that if he was willing to share his knowledge about the process, that I would look to table the F1 item and put a workshop together so that we and anyone else who would have interest could come and learn some of the pros and cons and ins and outs and valuable uses and for the process, and also reasons that it may not look to be used in certain instances, and what it's for and what it's not for. So we have scheduled a workshop for Monday, November 27th at 7 p.m. here at City Hall. Our city attorney, Tom Pearson, will be presenting that workshop, and that's what I have for information. So I would make a motion that we table F1 until the December meeting.
Can I ask a question before we vote?
Yes.
One of the reasons we waited, we didn't do anything last month, is the Public Works Committee was going to have a session with the young lady who does all the finance.
And we did, yeah.
We did that, but she left. She said, all my numbers are now not valid or something like that.
That was with the sewer.
They have to be redone. That was with the streets too, wasn't it?
No, it was the sewer.
No, we got through the street.
Yeah, it was the sewer portion that was that.
Okay, I thought she was talking about the whole business. Then it's my mistake, I'm mistaken then, okay.
No worries.
We'll have
problems.
we'll have that detail at the meeting then.
What's that now, Don?
We'll
Probably
have,
not from a budget standpoint.
okay.
I think this is going to be more just what the
General.
process entails.
Okay.
I think Heather pretty well laid out the budget piece for us. The other.
Okay, I just thought when she left that she said that her numbers were no longer valid. So if she was just talking about sewer, then it's my mistake. Okay.
Okay. Tom.
Mayor, Jenny needs to post this workshop, and you might just consider having this motion to continue this agenda item to that meeting, so that Jenny doesn't have to go through that step of posting it.
Okay.
If you merely continue this agenda item to that date, then that will serve as the
Yeah.
notice that you would otherwise have to post.
Okay. I would like to see it posted though. So if there is any, I mean, I certainly. We could do both technically, but I would like the citizens to be notified that we're having the meeting as well. I think it would be, for anybody who would have interest, that they would be notified of it. So.
So the motion is to table it to November 27th at 7 p.m.? Is that the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Discussion?
I mean, I'm fine with tabling it, but last week when we asked to table it for what I believe was a reasonable request to table this till we get the numbers, we were told by you, Mr. Mayor, that we were kicking the can down the road. If I look at this whole process of how this started to how this got here to today on this, private meetings, I've talked to people who've had misinformation about what this would cost. The whole way this thing has gone from day one to day now is absolutely horrible. It's not the way business should be done. And why last week all of a sudden we were bent on killing it, and now we're coming back. And again, I'm for this. I'm for information. I'm for going forward. But I guess I don't get this process of how it's taken place, and I think it's just been from day one.
I would, first of all, I would certainly agree that from day one it's been a disaster. Yeah, there really wasn't, it didn't go through the process it was supposed to a year ago. The reason that that I looked to have this workshop after hearing different things, information amongst council, and then some information in my discussion with Tom Pearson. I actually did this because of you and Don. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a very respectful way. John Ryan has somewhat indicated he's against assessments. Gary Johnson has suggested that he's not for assessments. I'm not for assessments. So if we just went ahead and voted, and that indeed was the case, that would be the outcome. But because you have questions, and you say it's been a mess, you don't understand it, there's confusion. So that being the case, I thought it might be wise that we have a workshop so that we can all hear the same words and we can gain knowledge so that when we do take a vote, that it will be the best for the city.
Let's just go with it. Let's vote.
I mean, we could do a vote and it would probably flop and it'd be gone.
Well, and that's not best for the city. But anyway,
So let's
let's just
based off of your concerns about how the process is and has gone for the last year.
Well, last week I was kicking it down the can by going beyond that. Anyway, just call the vote.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Did we get an email on that meeting? Had you scheduled that with us yet?
I sent an email asking about dates.
Okay, yes.
Yes, and I will make sure to follow up just so everyone has it
Okay.
on their schedule again. Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
It is scheduled for Monday, November 27th at 7 p.m.
Yes.
We had talked today.
Yep.
So, very good.
Yep.
Okay. At this point in time, we need to have a motion to close the meeting for discussion.
Mr. Mayor, if we go to the council reports, mayor and council members, and then we close, then when we come back out, all we can do is adjourn. All the people don't have to stay around then.
Okay. We can do that. Yeah. Don't know if people want to stay here, council reports or not, but we can certainly do that. So if you'd like to do that, Gary, okay with that?
Yep, I'm fine with
Yeah,
that.
I'm fine with that. Makes sense.
Very good. So we'll do council reports then before we move to closed session. First is the mayor's report, and a good bit of the information that I've brought up during different points along the way here tonight. One last thing that I wanted to bring up is a year ago, I had a need to move out of the city for a period of a few months. I had checked with the League of Minnesota Cities, got their opinion, which they saw no problem with that, but they suggested I talk also with our city attorney. I did talk with our city attorney at that time, and there was no perceived issue with my not physically living in Nisswa for a few months of the year. This year, I did the same thing, meaning I didn't live in the city of Nisswa for a portion, or for 3.5 months or so. But again, before I moved, I contacted the League of Minnesota Cities, asked them again about it. They didn't see an issue. I asked them if they had a hard and fast time frame for that, and they said they really didn't. I asked them about the 6 months and a year, which is the Minnesota residency, and they said that could be. They said we don't have a hard and fast opinion, but that could be. They again recommended that I talk with our city attorney. I contacted Mr. Pearson, and I had a conversation with him about it, and I explained the period of time that I was gone, or I was going to be gone, and he said he didn't see an issue with that. He thought it was within protocol or limits, whatever, and so then in the last month or few weeks, well, I guess all summer I've heard this discussion kind of being brought up, and I have addressed it with a couple of the council members, at least a couple of the members, if not all. I heard that two of the department heads had concerns about it, and they were even watching where I was living, which I thought was a little over the top. So I am back living in the city of Nisswa again, and this may possibly come up again next year. I guess Jenny brought it up again, I don't know, 10 days ago or so, such that a couple council members had come to her and asked about it. And my recommendation and suggestion at that time was that she would let the council members know that we had talked about it, and that I suggested that we get together and talk about it, but first that council should talk with the League of Minnesota Cities and the city attorney, and before we got together. And I've not heard back from anybody on that. So I'm just bringing it up, getting it out in the open. Not that it wasn't out in the open, but it sure seems to be causing a stir with some. So I hope this puts an end to the discussion so that we can move on and move forward. And if there's any questions, I'd like to hear them.
I would just say that, it would be nice in the, I just, to be upfront and say this is what's going on, especially when people are. My conversations with the attorney on this was that it's a murky, it's not 100% okay, but it's not, it's again, sounds like a poorly written law, but it's murky. But especially to know, to put this back on that, it's none of the employees' business. I think it is people's business. You're an elected official. And you should have came to us beforehand, 2 years ago when people were questioning it, and again, it was vague. But on record?
I have both years.
Come to, at a city council meeting, did I miss the meetings? At city council meetings, you said you'll be moving out and you'll be moving back.
Not at the city council meeting, but no, individually, and I've notified the city clerk of that.
I guess I've never been in that conversation, but that's my only point on it is, Why not just be upfront and at a city council meeting say, this is what's going on, this is when I'm moving back, so everybody knows and we can just get on with life. That's all I got to say on it, so.
Well, I didn't know it was bothering your TV time, Mr. Grove-Kramer.
It didn't bother my TV time, but it created a lot of distraction around city council, around the offices here, which just doesn't need to be.
Well, as I've stated,
So, but
the city was notified both years.
yeah, well, that's fine.
And it was notified when I moved back again, both years. I'm sorry if it's a problem.
So, anybody else have questions?
Well, I think the state law says to hold public office, you must be a resident of the district in which you serve, and that's the city of Nisswa. It also says that it's extremely difficult to get an elected official out, but the city council has the ultimate decision as to whether that official stays in or out. If you voted the official out, there's always the courts, and by the time you go through it, spend a lot of money, and you're 6 months to a year down the road. I don't know. My only point is that it's not as clear cut as some people want it to be. That's true. It can be expensive if you try and get rid of an elected official. My only point being, I was aware of it a while ago. Didn't say anything. I talked to you personally about it, but to nobody else. I think the people of the city need to know that you're here, or you're not here for about 4 months out of the year. And that, I think, has an impact to let the people of this decide when election time comes up.
Yeah, and my reply to that is, there may be a period of time where I don't physically live in the city of Nisswa, but I am in the city of Nisswa almost every single day. I do business here. I talk with business people. I talk with residents. I am in weekly, bi-weekly comments with many people. So
the law says you have to live in your district.
That's right.
Right.
And
Not visit your district.
And it's certainly not visiting. So obviously, it's a personal thing. So so we'll just leave it at that, and we'll move on. So, Don, report, planning and zoning.
No, I don't have a planning and zoning report. I have a question here. When we approved the consent agenda, there was a separate thing here about the hires for warming house attendant. That was not included in the consent agenda. That didn't appear on the agenda. We have to make a motion on that?
There's personal updates, number 8.
Yeah, I know he talked about it, but didn't give the name. We have the names and the effective dates and everything else on the separate sheet. As long as everybody agrees that it was handled okay, I'm fine with it. It's just that I didn't hear it on the consent agenda when we said okay. That's one thing that I talked about last time, things on the consent agenda that should be pulled off and acted on separately, and here it is again. If everybody agrees that it was passed upon and okay, I'll go along with it this time. But I'd like to see stuff like that pulled out if we need to.
You mean pulled out and put into the regular agenda?
Yeah, not in the
Not as a
consent agenda,
consent.
because you're approving a ton of stuff in consent agenda.
That is the purpose of it, though, and that is why, that's exactly why things like that are done.
Yeah, but then why is this separately in the packet?
I guess I don't understand your question as far as
Because it's
separate.
addressing the personnel
I don't understand
updates.
it either. All the other reports that are in the consent calendar are there too, Mr. Jacobs.
Yeah, the report, he said that he wanted to hire some people, but he didn't give, in his report, he didn't give the names.
He hasn't hired them yet. If you're talking the
That's what I'm
spirits,
saying.
he's
No, this is
starting
the hockey, the warming house.
Warming house
okay.
attendants.
This is some
Okay.
young people for the
I'm not against hiring the people and everything, I just like to do it the right way, that's all. That's my comment.
I think what you're doing is fine.
Okay, let's talk some other time. I just want to make sure that
Okay.
it's
Maybe
seen the
I
way
can
you'd like it.
Maybe if I can talk to her, I could convince her otherwise.
Gary?
Nothing.
Ross?
I got a couple of things. I talked with Jenny, but I think we need to have a discussion and come to a conclusion if we're still liaisons or not. I don't think, unless I missed it, I don't think that that's ever been addressed officially. And as I told Jenny, at this point, I think I'd like to keep the liaisons. Obviously, they have to have a different respect now to go through Jenny, but to have one council member kind of in the finger of the departments, or at least working with the departments, I think is important. But that's my own personal opinion, but I think that needs to get on the agenda for next time. Sure. And especially now we're coming to first of the year for appointments. The other thing, I briefly talked with Mark Ronite tonight, but at our last meeting, public meeting or workshop we had on the council, he talked about that we need to be proactive on looking at funding for the sewer project with PFA. He gave some names of Region 5 and how to get started with that. I have not, I just remember him at that meeting saying that that is something that, you know, we should be looking at, and I've waited. But I guess if the council is having problems, I would start with Jenny to at least start seeing what that looks like, so that we're not behind on our funding, and especially if there's grants and stuff's available. So if nobody has a problem with that, I would continue forward with that and start tracking that down, and so if we move forward with that.
And I have had a discussion with Cheryl Hills at Region 5, just very, very briefly, so, but absolutely, USDA, those kinds of things as well. We'll start to work on that.
Mark has a vast knowledge of this from prior time too,
Sure.
so he would be
Good resource.
willing to help. So.
Okay.
Very good. That concludes council reports, so is there a motion to go to closed
Mr.
session?
Mayor, I move that we go to closed session for union negotiation status and to close the meeting pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.03, closed session. We will come back only to adjourn.
Second.
We'll take a few-minute recess.